Okay, I want to welcome all of you to our special forum on global refuge. I was struck the closing song that we sang today at worship, which is the first one in the section on national songs, is a striking one and very appropriate for our time together. The first verse kind of concludes, "This is my home, the country where my heart is." And then it goes on, "But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine." It reminds us that there is a whole world out there of people that have the same hopes and dreams as we do here in this country, and people that have been displaced, millions of people that have been displaced from their homes, and many that are seeking a new home. And we are grateful to the work of Global Refuge, formerly Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, who've been working at this for decades, since World War II, helping to resettle people in this country, people that are looking for a new home and a new start. We want to welcome John Buuck, Senior Philanthropic Advisor for Global Refuge. He's served in this role for nearly 2 years, formerly was with Lutheran World Relief, and is an ordained pastor in the ELCA. Also, we want to welcome our good friend Wilmot Collins, Mayor of Helena, Montana. He and his wife Maddie are from Liberia, and he will share more of his story. He has been on the board for Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, now Global Refuge, and also has spoken before the United Nations on immigration issues. Please welcome John and Wilmot.
Good morning. It is really good to be with you this morning. Thank you for the warm welcome. And just on behalf of your brothers and sisters across the United States who are extending welcome to newcomers, thank you. Thank you for the recent welcome that you have provided to a Ukrainian family. It is truly a fabric that you are a part of that are really sharing the narrative that we as people of faith, as Christians, are extending welcome. So it's an honor to be here with you today. I'll say a few words after Mayor Collins speaks, but I also want to highlight that Maddie here this morning is Professor Collins. And so it is truly a gift that we have both of them here this morning. And I would encourage you, when we are done, to spend some time getting to know them. In just a short order, we have become really good friends, and it's an honor to be with them today. So, Mayor Collins, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I got one already. Good afternoon. Well, let me see. Oh, good morning. I apologize. Well, my wife Maddie and I were very happy to be with you today. We bring you greetings from Helena, where we reside. And Maddie and I were from Liberia, West Africa. Liberia is a small country in Africa, and it was established by slaves that were freed from this country that was sent back to Africa, and they established that land called Liberia. The slaves, when they arrived, they were very happy, and they decided to honor an individual who assisted them in gaining their freedom. They named the capital city Monrovia in honor of the 5th president, James Monroe. Liberia was the first independent African nation. We gained our independence straight out of slavery. No, we were never colonized by any country. Liberia has, I'm sure most of you have driven on the Firestone tires, the BF Goodrich, the Bridgestone. And you never thought about where that material comes from. Liberia, we have the world's largest rubber plantation, and it's called Firestone Plantation Company. It's an American and Japanese company now. So there were lots of similarities. In Liberia, I'm from Maryland, and we have Louisiana, we have New Georgia, we have Mississippi River. So you see, where the slaves lived is where they took back with them similar stuff, naming the places after them. And we have the George W. Bridge. The largest hospital in Liberia is called the John F. Kennedy Memorial Hospital. We have the Richard A. Nixon Elementary School. So yes, but Liberia got engulfed in one of Africa's most brutal civil war. And at the time, I was a teacher at the SOS Children's Village. It's an organization that was established after World War II by an Austrian, Hermann Miner. And the SOS Children's Village is in almost every African, Asian, and there is a head office in New York. That's where I used to teach, and my wife, Maddie, was in medical school when the war broke out. And the war was very brutal. In the first 3 months of the war, the United Nations estimated 250,000 Liberians lost their lives. 250,000 Liberians. Maddie lost a sibling, I lost siblings, she lost an uncle, every Liberian lost a relative in that war. It was so brutal. West African countries came together and decided to bring peace. The peacekeepers came in, and they came on a ship, and they decided that whoever wanted to leave they could leave on board the ship. But the ship was a cargo ship. It's not no cruise where we were living it up. But Maddie and I, we were moving from place to place to place to place. And finally, we got situated in a home, just one bedroom, where my mother, my siblings, Maddie were all situated, no bed. We had to sleep on the floor. And when the ship arrived in Liberia, we decided that it was a Thursday night. I remember Maddie, myself, my mother, all of us got together and started to pray. And we had prayed that it was time for us to leave, because the day before, Maddie and I had been threatened. We were almost killed by the rebels. And we just felt that it was time. If we stayed any longer, we would have been killed. So that morning, after we prayed that night, the next morning, we got up ready to go to the port. And my mom says, "I'm not going." And I'm like, "Why?" She said, "The Lord is not leading me to leave." I said, "The Lord brought the ship. That means you must go." She says, "No, I'm not leaving." And so Maddie, my sister, we all decided we were leaving. And we went to the port of Monrovia. And to get on board the ship, the line was more than a mile long. And we stayed on line Friday. We stayed on line Saturday. We stayed on line Sunday. Finally, 9:47 p.m. Sunday evening, we were selected to get on board the ship. And about 10 minutes later, they closed the gates. And it was estimated 10,000 Liberians boarded that ship. So we get on board the ship, and I whispered to Maddie, where are we going? She said, "I thought you knew." We got on board that ship not knowing where we were going. And so we were praying that we would land in an English-speaking country, because in Liberia, we speak English. And then we found out later on that the ship would land in Ghana, and Ghana were colonized by Great Britain, so they speak English. So we were happy. Prior to getting on board the ship, my mother had $5, and she handed it to my wife and said, "Go, God be with you." So we got on board the ship. Between the two of us, we have $5. The ride, the journeying on the ship to Ghana, it took 3 days. So imagine we stood online for 3 days and we got on board the ship with 10,000 people, and we could only stand up. There was only standing room for another 3 days. And nothing to eat, no change of clothes, nothing. We literally were begging others on board the ship for food. When we finally landed in Ghana, I spoke to Maddie. I said, "I need to go find the SOS Children's Village." That's the organization I used to teach at in Liberia, and I heard they had another office in Ghana. And so I said, "I need the $5. So I was able to sneak out of the gates that they had us in, and I stopped a cab. And I told the cab, "I'm going to the SOS Children's Village. Do you know it?" He said, "Oh, yes, I can take you there." And I said, "I don't have much money. I have only $5. And he said, "That would be enough." Later on, we found it will cost only 50 cents. But that was my first introduction to Ghana. So anyway, when we got, he took me to the SOS Children's Village, and we got to we met with the director, and I introduced myself. He said, "Can you prove you're Wilmot Collins? Do you have an ID?" I said, "Well, we all left Liberia with our IDs. If you had IDs during the time, it was almost automatic. They would link you to someone or something or some organization." So everybody got rid of their IDs. And now here I am in Ghana, and I have to identify myself, and I couldn't even prove I was Wilmot. So he said, "Well, we have some students that came on the first ship. If they can identify you, we'll help you." I said, "Please send for them. I used to teach them." So he sent for the kids. When the kids saw me, they started crying. And I thought they were going to be happy, but they were crying. But then when I went into the restroom to use the restroom, I realized why they were crying. Because when I looked in the mirror, I was a walking dead body. From 176 pounds, I was down to 92 pounds. And Maddie was even, 87. We were dying of starvation and didn't even know it. So when the kids identify us, he said he will help us. So he put me back into school. We started teaching the school. Maddie started, because she was a medical student, she started helping out in the clinic. And after about 3 months, Maddie comes to me and said, this is not the life I want. Let's go to America. I said, "How do you suppose we do that?" She said, "Let's go to Montana." I said, "Make up your mind. We'll go to Montana, we'll go to America." So, but anyway, Maddie was an exchange student from Africa, from Liberia, and she went to Montana and spent a year there with her family. And she graduated from high school, from Helena High School. And so after the year of exchange, she went back to Liberia, and that's how we met. And so she said, "I will contact my family. I'm still in touch with them." And she were able to contact the family, and they were willing to help us. But nobody knew how to get about this, how to do this. And so the family contacted Carroll College. It's a Catholic college in Helena. And Carroll College awarded my wife a full nursing scholarship. And so we went to the embassy, and they were able to grant my wife a visa to come to America, and I couldn't come. And so 2 weeks before my wife were to depart, we found out she was pregnant. So that changed things. And I'm like, no, you can't go now because you're taking our child with you, and I don't know when we'll ever meet again. But she convinced me, saying that was the best thing to do. And so she left Ghana pregnant, went to Carroll College, had the baby, graduated with honors. And in the meantime, I'm still trying to join them. And then finally, Congress passed the Liberian Resettlement Act, which it said that if you had a relative in America who was an American citizen or who was a green card holder, you were allowed to join them. But I couldn't come because Maddie was not an American citizen and she was not a green card holder. She was a student. So eventually our daughter was born. You remember, she left pregnant. Then I went back to the embassy and saying, hey, I got an American citizen in America now. And I had to prove that that American citizen was my child. And it wasn't easy. I called Maddie. I said, hey, send the birth certificate. Make sure my name appears on there as the father. So Maddie sent the birth certificate and we submitted it. And then she said, how do you communicate with your wife? I said, through letters and calls. She said, tell your wife to send the phone bills and tell the wife to send the letters you've written her. Maddie sent all of those. I called Maddie up. I said, send only the good letters. She said, all your letters are bad. Because I was angry. I was very critical. And so they read the letters, they did everything, they did all of that. In the meantime, my daughter is almost 2 years old and I'm still in Africa. I haven't seen her. So finally, I was cleared to join my family. But before I came to America, I called Maddie. I said, hey, I've been reading about Montana. I don't want to believe what it says. So you tell me, what's the weather like today? She said, oh my God, it's pretty warm today. I said, what's the weather? She said, it's 29 degrees. And that's in January. The average temperature in Liberia is 85. And this lady is telling me it's getting warm at 29. And then I said, has Jamie, our daughter, seen a black person? She said, oh yeah, there's a black boy in my school. I said, did you say a black boy? So that means there's only one? So I started wondering, where am I going? It gets warm at 29. There is a black boy. So I didn't think my wife understood the weather. So I said, let me speak to your host mother, Joyce Knoxheim. Joyce came on the phone. Hi, Wilma, we're so happy you're about to join us. I said, Joyce, what's the weather like today? She said, oh my God, Wilma, it's so warm. It's 29 degrees. And I said, Joyce, what is it when it's cold? She said, oh, sometimes 30 below. I said, below what? She said, below zero. Just so you know how confused I was, right? Because I'm coming from a 85-degree, 90 temperature, and she says it's warm at 29 and cold at below zero, 30 below. I told her I would be joining them, and so finally, I mean, this is why we love Montana. So I called my sister. I said, okay, I'm coming to America. She said, I will meet you at the airport. And whatever I bring, you put on before you go to Montana. Because I'm coming from one kind of climate, hot, humid, going to Montana, cold, dry. So I met my sister at the airport and she handed me this big bag with winter clothes. And I remember she said, whatever I bring, you put on. So that morning, the following morning, we spent a night in a hotel. And the following morning, she had 2 sets of long johns in there. Do you know how difficult it is putting on 2 sets of long johns? and then she had a turtleneck, and then she had a pair of jeans. And have you seen the commercial, the Michelin Man? That was me. So, but what she didn't tell me was I would be in the airport. So I'm looking around, everybody's so comfortable, and I'm the only person sweating in the airport. So we got on the plane, and we went through to Paris and then to Salt Lake City. And then when we had a layover there, so I decided I'm taking this stuff off. I ran to the restroom and took off a few layers. And then we got on the plane from Salt Lake to Helena. And I sat by the window on these small planes, sat by the window, and this guy comes on the plane and he sits next to me. He says, hello. I said, hi. He said, you must be Wilmot. Think about it. I said, whoa, whoa, who are you? Who are you? So he said his name was Craig. Is that a name? Or I keep mixing. It's Craig Baker. His father was the one that was instrumental in awarding the scholarship for Maddie to do nursing. He said, oh, I'm coming to Helena to meet you. I said, but how did you know I was Wilmot? He said, look around the plane. So I looked around the plane. I'm the only guy there. So I said, oh, okay, I understand. So we chatted and all of that. And then we're landing in Helena, and the pilot gets on the intercom. Welcome to Helena. It's sunny and warm at 32 degrees. And I started freaking out because I had taken all my clothes off. Now I want to put them back because I know water freezes at what? 32. And this man is saying it's sunny and warm. All right. So we landed, and by this time, it has been 2 years and 7 months since I saw my wife. I had not seen my daughter. So landed, got into the terminal, and I saw Maddie holding up my daughter. She put the little girl down and said, there's daddy, go to daddy. She started walking, and then she started running. It was emotional. For the first time, I was able to hold my daughter. And yes, we had this big sign, welcome home, Wilmot. It was so touching to be at the terminal. But, you know, organizations like Global Refuge, that's when they step in and they try to make life easy for you, because first of all, you're coming into a completely strange land. You don't know anybody there. You don't know what to do. And they try to make it comfortable for you. They guide you through different processes and how to live, basically. They're giving you a second chance at life. They're giving you that chance that you've been longing for. You're looking for a friend, and they're right there for you. And I know I work closely with Global Refuge because I was on their board, and I knew the work we did firsthand. That's why I support this organization, top bottom, because I experienced what they did. And then I worked for them on their board. So there's no jiving, there's no messing around. Global Refuge is the real deal. Anyway, so then I get into Helena. I'm there. I don't have any work. Our host family, we're living with our host family, and he's an assistant principal at the local Helena High School. Every morning when he's going to school, I'm jumping in the car and going to school with him. And this day I'm walking around, I see this beautiful building, the Capitol building. And I walked up to the stairs, and to my right, I saw Office of the Secretary of State. To my left, I saw Office of the Governor. I'm going to the governor. So I beeline to the governor. I got stopped. Do you have an appointment? I said, no. And then the lady said, would you like to make an appointment? I said, yeah, sure. So I'm writing my name down. And this gentleman comes behind me. He says, may I help you? I said, no, I'm here to meet the governor. He said, well, I'm the governor, Mark Roscoe. What can I do for you? I said, well, I came from Africa 2 weeks ago. I thought I should come and see you. He said, what part of Africa? I said, Liberia. He said, oh, where the slaves went? I said, yes. He said, come on in. And I walked right on in behind him into his office. And he said, Mr. Collins, so what do you do? I pull out my resume from my pocket. You know, those days there were paper resume that long. I hand it to him. Oh, you were a teacher. He presses intercom. Pat, would you come in? This lady came in and he handed my resume. How can we help Mr. Collins? And Pat looked at it and said, oh, Intermountain Children's Home is looking for counselor. Why don't you apply? And she took the governor's card and took her card and use us as your references. So I looked at the governor. I said, I can do that? He said, please, I will be honored. I started working the following week. I applied, I used the governor, and I started working immediately. Not once did anybody ask me my political views. They were just there to help. That's all that mattered to them. Not once. And Global Refuge was, they're there to just guide you each and every step of, because it's frightening coming into a new country and not knowing the way of life. It's frightening. And so many years after living there, then my son, who now we had a boy later on, he's attending the University of Montana, and he came home this day with this crazy idea that we think it's time you run for mayor. I said, whoa, slow down. I don't know anything about politics. Don't get me involved. And he said, no, I'm serious. You should run for mayor. I said, but what do I need to do? He said, invite some friends over, you know. So we invited 3 couples over. We had dinner. And then when I told them that I was thinking about running for mayor, one of the ladies yelled, oh my God, this is fake. So what do you mean? She said, we were just thinking about asking you last night to run for mayor. Now you telling us. So the rest is history. Do you have questions? Or John, are you going to come up first? I don't know how you want to do this, whether I'll entertain questions or John come up and we'll tag team.
And I think I muted this by accident. Want to just also share a couple of stories here that impact you in Washington. The first is a gentleman named Krisanda, who is from Thailand. And at Global Refuge, we talk about the long welcome, because yes, as you've experienced and you've provided a welcome, an immediate welcome, but there's also many hurdles that need to be overcome. So Global Refuge is continually expanding to help meet those hurdles and to extend a long welcome. So Krisanda came from Thailand and he ended up settling in the DC area and was working in the restaurant industry. He came to us about 3 years ago now and said, you didn't help resettle me here in the United States, but I can't afford to feed my family anymore. Can you help me find a new job? And so we began learning more about him and having some conversations with him, and learned that he was in IT in Thailand. And he had kept up on his certification. And so we said, how about if you apply to Amazon? Which he did. Amazon hired him, paid him a $35,000 signing bonus, moved him to Seattle from Washington, DC, and now he's earning six figures. And so he is here now. Those stories are, I mean, his story is repeated across the nation. A year ago, I was at Mountain View Lutheran outside of Tacoma. And that Sunday, a family had just arrived the week before from Afghanistan. And the gentleman was a surgeon. Many people are coming here that are just have amazing skills, but also need some support here in Long Welcome, which you help provide, which Global Refuge works to provide. And the final person I want to lift up, her name is Emily. She was a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and she spent 15 years in Uganda when she was a child. She then came here to the United States with her family. She was welcomed in Tacoma at St. Mark's Lutheran Church by the Narrows through Lutheran Community Services of the Northwest. And she got hooked at St. Mark's Lutheran Church, and Pastor Jan Rude helped mentor her, and she ended up going to seminary, and she is now an ELCA pastor serving in Clackamas, Oregon. And so these are just some examples of people that have been just, that we are blessed through and that are here in your community. And I just want to say thank you for your support. And I'm happy to have conversations with you one-on-one. Seattle has kind of become my second home because there is so much support. I live in Minneapolis, but I'm out here quite frequently and also happy to have conversations on the phone. If you want to learn more about how you can become involved in Global Refuge, or you have questions, I would be thrilled to have conversation with you. So now I will step out of the way because I'm sure you've got questions for him.
For both of us.
Take that. Take that.
I'm glad you did the third one, because not everyone coming here has the credentials that you mentioned in first, a surgeon and IT and so on.
Right.
What about the ordinary person who, like me, for example, who don't have those credentials? They're still welcome?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was in hopes.
Yeah. And one of the things, you know, it's now, unfortunately, when we talk about immigration, it becomes so divisive in some circles. But if you look at economically, first of all, we need more workers. We need people to come. And when you also then look deeper, people who are newcomers are more likely to start businesses than those of us who have been here for a while.
But I will also expand on that, because I know in Montana, the hotel industries were struggling to keep employees. And when some refugees came from the Congo and they were there, and the owners of those hotels now, they have people who have never missed a day of work. This lady, when she started working at the hotel, cleaning the rooms, she had never seen a vacuum cleaner. And when she put it on the first time, she ran away. Because she literally ran away from the sound and everything. So what the hotel management did was they created a training room. One room was set aside, and they taught them in that room how to clean that particular room and do everything. And they are so impressed with their work ethics. They have never missed a day. They've been working for 2 years there and never missed a day. And that's what we're talking about. So, questions? Yes, sir.
Sure. Two questions. One is, have you and your family had an opportunity to go back with your children, take your children back? And the second question is your mother. You left your mother at the dock.
That's true. Okay, I'll answer the first one, the second one first. My mother, like I told you, she was, and she's still stubborn. All right, she refused to go, and I am so appreciative that she didn't go with us because I don't know if she would have made it because she was not well. And so when she said the Lord was not leading her, I'm happy she didn't listen to me. And my mom came and she moved to Montana with us. She lived there for 12 or 15 years with us. And then she decided that she wanted to go somewhere warmer. And she went to my sister in Minneapolis. And she's living there. She will be 93 in August. She's doing very well. Thanks for asking. Now, yes, we took our kids back there, back in Liberia when things had calmed down. When we had Africa's first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she was Africa's first female president of Liberia. And things had calmed down. Maddie and I decided to take our two kids back to Liberia to meet their cousins, their uncles, and everybody. And when they got there, they didn't want to come back. My son said, Dad, can we stay? I said, no, we're visiting. I got to go back to Montana. But yes, so.
And then my mother was living with us and she went on that trip. So it was a pretty awesome trip because my mother from Liberia, she left during the war, so there was no food for her. And after the two and a half weeks after we were there, she's like, I'm ready to go back home. And I go, where? San Jose. That culture, that war took away from her. And to be able to go back and see a home and see family and everything. So it was a really great trip.
So did you leave during the first or the second?
The first.
The first?
Yeah, when it started in December 24th, 1989, that's the first one. That's the one we left Liberia. Oh, no. Oh, the 1980 coup d'etat, we were there. I was in the 12th grade then, I was attending a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school for boys. That's where I was when we heard of the coup event. I still remember very well. I was washing a plate, and when I heard that the government had been overthrown, the plate dropped. Because then I got stuck because I was the president of my class, so I had to go a week early to get things settled. But then going early, nobody else could come because there was a coup d'etat. So I was stuck there for almost a month alone. Yeah, but yes, we stayed there. We were there for that coup. It's much better than when we left it. Much better than when we left it. They just had elections in November, and now they have a new. That's the third or fourth Democratic election that's been held in Liberia. And they have the former vice president is now the president of Liberia, Joseph Buuck. Questions? Yes, sir.
The Liberian across the old.
Think about it. Everywhere. I was in Alaska. They're in Alaska. They're everywhere. All over the world. They're there. In fact, there was just yesterday, the news came out that a Liberian by the name of Collins became the first mayor in the UK, in one of the countries, one of the cities in the UK. A Liberian with my name from my town. So maybe he's related to me. I think we're noted for being mayors, I think we're being trained for that. So they're everywhere, sir. Everywhere.
I got a question for John here. So where are you seeing the most, help that is needed? Because I don't understand global refuge completely, but it's not actually helping people get out, but it's when they get here and they're welcoming in. Because I know enough or hear enough about the news that it's like these middle-class Chinese are leaving and coming through the Mexican border, right? Everything's on YouTube where they get that way. So where's global refuge seeing the most, help that's needed?
Well, let me just explain. So Global Refuge is a national organization, and we're one of 10 organizations that the United States government partners with to help resettle refugees. And in addition to helping resettle refugees, yeah, we also then have launched welcome centers across the United States. There's one here in SeaTac, and then another one in Portland, and that is through Lutheran Community Services Northwest. We helped launch them, but now the other funding has come in, so we're able to step back from supporting those, and Lutheran Community Services has funding now coming from the state of Washington for the Welcome Center in SeaTac and the state of Oregon for the Welcome Center in Portland, and then that frees up more resources. So I'll get to your question here. So what we are seeing needs in is in, first of all, for people who are seeking asylum, they need legal services. It's crucial that they have good legal representation. And many of our affiliates, like Lutheran Community Services Northwest, provide legal services, but there are areas across the nation that don't have good legal services for newcomers. So we have launched a legal services division. And in fact, we are taking attorneys now. Our attorneys are going around. There are pop-up sites across the nation, like in Charlotte and San Diego and other places. I think we've been to like 13 or 14 of them so far, just for people who are here from Afghanistan. They are here on temporary status. Global Refuge has been working to try to get permanent status, for at least a path to permanent status for people who have arrived from Afghanistan. And many Afghanis have landed here in Seattle. Seattle is one of the areas where many Afghanis have come to. So that is an area of support for Afghanis. Also the southern border, yes, many people are coming to the southern border to cross, because that is, in some respects, the only way they can get in. And so unless you're in the refugee status, if you are trying to get here, it's difficult. So another hat I wear, all right, I'll step out of Global Refuge just for a moment, is that I'm on the board of Border Servant Corps, which is on the southern border and based in Las Cruces, and also has offices in El Paso. And I was down there on a border immersion trip a couple of months ago, taking Global Refuge donors there. And it's fascinating to see that everything is ordered, that the local people, the local organizations, and the federal government are really working well together in the midst of a difficult situation. A federal judge that we met he spoke, and we heard similar things from others, but the federal judge said, you know, one way to help with the southern border would be to just provide more work permits. And, but he says, you know, we're down here, we're on site, but no one's asking us what can be helped. But it's interesting that sometimes the narrative, what we hear on the news, isn't exactly what's happening there. Other needs are with careers, jobs, because when you're a refugee, you're kind of have to take the first job that comes along. And so helping people thrive and have dignity is another need.
Can you,
One last question.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was just, you touched on it, and I was just, what are you doing with the narrative? I mean, I hear these wonderful stories about what the reality is, and then I see the narrative, and it's affecting policy, unfortunately. And we need policy. So what are you and your organizations and similar organizations, do you have lobbyists? Okay, and are they making any progress?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah, we do have an advocacy office that connects with the different branches of government staff. And yeah, we are putting out as much that as we can to help correct the narrative. Chris Vignaraja, our president and CEO, she's really out. I think she's on speed dial for MSNBC, for the PBS NewsHour. If you just Google her, you will find that she's interviewed many places. So we are trying to change to help get the narrative out there, but it's tough.
But even with what we're doing now, these are what we're doing. This is what we're doing to help change the narrative because we're telling you the truth. And we will have more and more of these kind of meetings with people who are interested to let them hear the truth. So, your support you will, by supporting Global Refuge, you will hear the truth. You will not hear the narrative. You will hear the truth. And that's why we're here, to tell you the truth. Things are happening and they do good work. Thank you.
Let's say thank you to our guests for this morning. And I want to add, many of you know that I have just finished a book that's coming out in August, which is, the title of it is A Journey Called Hope, Immigrant Stories and the American Dream. And Global Refuge has been incredible to work with. They've shared stories. I've talked with Krish, the current CEO president, former presidents, other staff people, and they put me in touch with immigrants whose stories are in the book, including Wilmot's story and Emily's story. And that book is to come out to help tell the truth, to change the narrative from what you hear in the news. That immigrants are an important part of this country. They're adding to the strength and vitality and future of this country. And I hope that you'll Global Refuge is doing. There's some material here if you want to help yourselves. And you are part of helping us correct the narrative, to share the truth about the good work that is happening with Global Refuge and other institutions that are helping to resettle refugees. And I appreciate your interest, and thank you again for this morning for being here.